Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that asks the question, did the ghost twin girls from The Shining grow up and become the nursemaids for Dorothy? Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing Servant Season 4, Episode 3, Séance. I don't know what this is, but it's Séance. Right? I feel like you have a globe at seances, right? It's like a crystal, I don't know, a crystal ball that's like sitting there. Lots of candles all around. You're holding each other's hands, or at least close to holding hands. Maybe you're doing like a palm thing. And you start summoning and pretending that, I don't know, spirits are talking to you or some shit. And then suddenly a goat starts talking to you and flying around the room because it's actually infected. Wait, no, that's a Sam Raimi film, not real life. That's my bad. Let's talk about Servant. How about we do that instead of whatever that was that I was just doing? My initial thoughts of this episode are everything that I had sort of had this premonition for from the last episode still holds, but now I actually just feel sorry for Leanne. I mean, the truth of the matter is, this poor creature, and I say creature because I don't know if she's mortal at this point. I really do suspect she's some sort of, like, if not possessed entity, then like the Antichrist or some semblance or amalgamation thereof, right? But I do really feel sorry for her, and I'll get to that in a minute. But that's what this episode really brought to light for me, is that final scene with Leanne sort of spooning the lower half of Dorothy as Dorothy wakes up and sees it. I know Dorothy's in a place of panic and terror, but for me, the viewer watching it, it's nothing but pure sorrow for Leanne. This is... All right, look. Human beings are complicated, right? Now, you know this by now. We're creatures of habit, but also creatures of our environment. Our behaviors are directly echoes of our environments. If you are brought up in a loving household that encourages you to be an individual and find your own path, you will not fall into the habits of someone that is physically, emotionally, or sexually abused. Leanne shows every sign of being abused. Now, this is clearly stated that she was a member of a cult up until this point, up until the show started. And so the abuse is existing. It's real. Anyone who has been raised in any semblance of any religion, I don't care how deep your family was in it, has suffered abuse. Religion equals abuse. There's, in my mind, no denying it. If not outright sexual abuse, there's physical abuse, and if not that, then there's emotional abuse. All of it is wrapped up into this man's need to control everything around them. So they create religion and say, if you don't do what I say, you're going to go to hell and burn. And then people take advantage of that and take it to really disgusting, gross, unspeakable places. We don't know the places that Leanne was forced to go. We only know that she suffered, full extent of that word, under this cult. Maybe they were justified in some insane way because she is as this infernal entity that I suspect she's being presented as being. In either case, it's inexcusable abuse. And you can always recognize it when you witness it. It's a calling card. It's literally a sign, and like you're going to a conference. Hello, my name is X. I have been abused in a religious cult. Please help me. My name is Leanne Grayson. That's the vibe I'm getting from this. So the sorrow, the straight up despair that I'm feeling at that ending scene of watching Leanne spooning Dorothy's lower half of her body, It's not just an act of contrition because she's directly responsible for Dorothy having been paralyzed, but it's also a loss of a connection of normality, a loss of a connection of familial, I don't know, semblance. They are her new family. She's broken away from this religious cult, and she's actively fighting, literally, for her life to try to stay out of it. Literally, as we've seen in previous episodes. So she is in a position of pure PTSD trauma. And she's reacting according to someone who has been through an incredible amount of trauma. All the while it's presented in a way that we're supposed to fear or despise or dislike her as a character. And I can't help but feel a genuine amount of sorrow for her, because every human being wants to have a feeling of connection, of meaning, of love. And if you don't find that just in your natural course of living, sometimes you, in a very damaged way, find that in abusive relationships. Leanne had that semblance of connection and love in her cult, and then she broke away from it, became a nanny for the Turners, and they welcomed her with open arms initially. And so she found this semblance of normality, of this is what life could actually be like for me. I don't have to be in this insane sort of cultish life. I could actually just be normal like these people. And then they start reacting to the cult trying to get her back and her own abnormalities, and they start to outright reject her for who she instinctively is. She's not in control of it. And so she's now finding, once again, herself in a position of being rejected by everyone and everything that she thought she could connect to. Just imagine for a second, if you have not suffered from abuse, what that must feel like. To finally feel like you've escaped it, only to realize that you are knee-deep in it again. And that you are rejected simply because, not for what you have done, as much as for who you are and what others think you represent. They're rejecting you just for existing. How much pain would that cause a person? And so I see this in Leanne. I mean, it's a tribute to the amazing acting of Nell Tiger-Free, who is genuinely fucking phenomenal in this role, but also to the writers who are putting this story together and just torturing this poor soul, right? And to have her at that final scene of this episode, just holding on to her abusers, to those who actively reject her, because that is as normal a relationship as she is capable of understanding is normal. That's fucking devastating for a human being. Like, in every level, you can strip it down to being comedic or being fucking bombastic or whatever. But she desperately wants that abnormality that was her relationship with the Turners, because that's as normal as she has ever felt as an abused person. And that is devastating and sad, because it's not a fucking movie. That's real life. People exist in this realm where their sense of worth is wrapped up in another individual. And those other individuals are not always positive. Meaning they outright abuse you in the worst fucking ways. But you don't know any different. And so that becomes normal for you. That's fucking devastating and evil. And she is suffering like that. And so we're presented with this person who is coming into her own power, who is abusing those around her, and we're supposed to feel like she's the bad guy, all the while ignoring the true pain that she is actually going through. That is the complexity of this fucking amazing series. Goddamn amazing. You don't get that in any other show ever. It's all one-dimensional. This is the good guy, this is the bad guy, these are the results that made them that way, and now they have to fight. It's always something so distilled and simplistic like that. It's never like Servant. And the more I watch this goddamn show, the more desperately I fall in love with it because of the complexity, because it's not black and white. It's not simple. It's painful. It's painful to watch, but you don't want to turn away. And it's not like a car wreck. It's not like some shocking event like a murder. It's a slowly unfolding tapestry of pain and sorrow, and there is no upside. Kind of like life. Sometimes. Sometimes. I don't want to get all dark on you. All right. Those were my initial impressions. All right, so this was written by, Ishana Night Shyamalan. I mean, it didn't say M. Night Shyamalan, so I don't know if it's his wife, if it's his kid. I have no idea if it's even related. I assume it's maybe him. I don't fucking know. But that's the attribution of the director and writer. It premiered, of course, this past Friday. And as usual, the ritual in the Campbell household was very much grab a glass of wine, sit down, wait till it gets dark, shut the fuck up and watch and be filled with shock and awe. As I have loved doing every time this show comes on, every single season. So Dorothy hires 2 live-in nurses in order to accelerate recovery. We talked about this last episode. One of the things that we realized this episode is that they are really doing their job. They are keeping Leanne at bay as best as they are capable. And that just makes Leanne suspects they're actually part of the cult that's trying to get her. Understandably, she's literally being attacked on the regular. And what I don't understand about Leanne is that she's not telling the Turners about this. Like the regular attacks. They could do something for her. And they would then understand why she's acting the way she is if they just told her. This whole show is exactly the case of what happens when you're not honest with those around you that you purport to love or care about. Just be honest with them, and they will understand. Otherwise, they don't love or care about you. And you move the fuck on. You don't stay latching on to pain and sorrow. But this is what you expect out of abused people, out of tortured humans. And this is what she's doing. And so you can't deny that reality of this show, right? Because it's ever present and it is domineering. So these 2 women are being sort of seemingly nefarious because they have Dorothy's best intentions in mind. And it's because that's their fucking job. That's their profession. And they're clearly good at what they do, even if they are a little quirky and weird. But what do you want? They're characters. There's this scene that really sort of bugged me where Leanne had convinced Julian, Dorothy's brother, to go distrust them, ostensibly. And so there's a point where he goes down into their rooms and he gets under their bed and he sees this box and he expects to find some sort of weird occulty stuff. And he finds a bunch of like vibrators and dildos, like a box full of them. And I'm not going to pretend that a box full of vibrators and dildos is weird because it's kind of fucking weird. But vibrators and dildos in and of themselves are not fucking weird. And the reaction that Julian had to seeing vibrators and dildos in these old women was as if he was a little boy who had never heard about these things before, never knew about human desires or needs or an orgasm or what an orgasm can bring to a human, the sheer joy, elation, dopamine rush, the reality of sex. And he was like fumbling around with them in this weird, like he was trying to be comedic about it, but this was not the show to be comedic. It does not land that way. And it's so out of place for a grown-ass man to find like vibrators of grown-ass women and to think it's weird. That's a normal fucking thing. There's absolutely nothing abnormal about someone trying to stimulate themselves and have an orgasm. That's normal human behavior. Now, the amount of stimulants, I don't give a fuck. People vary, you know? I mean, like, fuck. I don't personally own any fucking vibrators. I don't care. If someone I'm with has them, then yeah, that's normal. That's great. Having a fucking crate of them might be a little fucking, you know, for me, a little bit overboard, but it's not abnormal. Like, you gotta, first of all, what are you gonna do with it if you buy it and it doesn't fucking turn you on, right? You gotta buy another one that does. Maybe it's a little shorter, maybe a little longer, maybe it's thicker, a little thinner, like whatever. You gotta find one that works for you. What are you gonna do with the old one? Maybe you just hold on to it. That's kind of the vibe I was getting from these old ladies with their box of fucking vibrators. But at no point did I think it was weird or suspicious or wacky and crazy like Julian was acting. They're fucking grown-ass women. They have needs. Like, they're realizing them. Like, leave them the fuck alone. It doesn't make them funny. It doesn't make them weird. It makes them fucking normal. Grow the fuck up. You're a grown-ass man, for fuck's sake. And you're the one creeping around their fucking private spaces. You're the fucking creep, not them. And so I didn't like how it presented them as weirdos simply because they had sex toys. That does not make someone weird. What makes someone weird is creeping around in other people's private spaces and uncovering sex toys. That's fucking weird. All right. So that fucking happened. But Leanne is doing everything she can to try to turn everyone against these two fucking nurses because she wants to go back to being in the abused relationship that she was in with the family before they fucking turned against her. Before the fucking pushing her off the balcony. Again, I'm not saying anyone is in the right here. And certainly not Leanne wanting to go back into an abusive relationship. But that's what she knows and that's what she feels is normal. And as sad as that is, that's where we are. And so she's doing everything she can. You see that Dorothy's husband, Sean, is doing everything he can to reconnect with Dorothy, who is also rejecting him as much as she's rejecting Leanne, because she doesn't really see that knot of what this family has become being separate threads anymore. She sees them as one amalgamation. Leanne is not distinct from Sean anymore. Sean is not distinct from Julian, and Julian is not distinct from Leanne. They are all together, tied in this knot, and Dorothy is having a really hard time coping with the fact that she may never fucking walk again, understandably. And she clearly has an insane fucking person working for her in the guise of Leanne, but she doesn't understand why Leanne is acting the way she is. They have tidbits of information, but they don't have all of the information. And all of this is compounded by the fact, as I've spoken in past episodes, and if you just watch one single episode, you understand fully, Dorothy is also fucked because she is trying to cope with the fact that she killed her fucking son and no one is admitting that it actually fucking happened, let alone her subconscious. And so she is doing everything she can to try to walk again, trying to convince these two nurses that she hired to use alternative medicine in the guise of a new age medicine techniques and ultimately a seance in order to get her back to normal again. And this is where we touch on something that I've been screaming about to my television and my poor, beautiful wife every fucking episode. Just tell the truth to this poor woman. She didn't mean to do it. She killed her son, but it was a fucking accident. She was depressed. She was suffering from postpartum depression. It's not her fault, but it did happen. Stop lying to her and stop enabling her. And so they go through with the seance, and this fucking nurse is saying, I see your son. Like on the other side, crying out for his mother. Why can't you come to me? Why can't you find me? What happened? Holy fucking devastation of a fucking situation. It is the saddest goddamn situation you could ever fucking be in, but at least it's a glimpse of truth in these seasons of lies upon lies. And so As a viewer, you're watching this saying, yes, just let it out. Let's put the fucking cards on the goddamn table already. Let's just let her know. And everyone's dancing around trying to get her to stop the seance because they don't want the fucking truth to come out. And Sean is reaching over to Julian, and Leanne is standing there with her own motivations. And ultimately, Leanne takes the knife from the cult members that she found that was meant to kill her, and she pulls it out on the seance nurse lady and cuts the back of her shirt to try to reveal the scar marks that the cult would inflict on people in order to put them in line, to punish them. And she assumed that they were part of the cult, and now she's faced with the reality that they're not members of this cult that she feared. Everyone is seeing her as crazy. She's justified in her fears. They just don't understand the reality and intensity of it because she hasn't told them that she's had 2 attacks in their house in the last week. And it's just like, if everyone was just goddamn honest, all of this would be fucking brought to light and everyone would be okay. They could work through it. But everyone is fucked up. And that's just not just the show. Everyone in general is fucked up. Everyone thinks they're the fucking movie star of their own stupid ass movie. We encourage this behavior with social media. We fucking pander to each other. No, you're doing great. You're living your best life. Hashtag, I don't know, whatever the fuck. We're not doing anyone any favors by lying to each other. You are not the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're just a fucking human making your way through life doing the best you can. Why can't that be good enough? Why can't it be good enough to say, yes, I have fucking flaws. I have made massive mistakes in my life, but I still am a human being with emotions and needs and desires. Is that not fucking good enough anymore? We all have to be fucking plastic creations of our own fucking insane fucking movies? This show is perpetuating everything that happens in fucking social media, and it's disgusting. I've been railing on it for years, and it's just it's exhausting. So finally, Leanne is faced with the reality that in this particular instance, she happens to be wrong. And Dorothy is doing everything she can to move on in a forward direction. With lies, but still, she's trying to move on. Sean is doing everything he can to connect with his wife. She's like turning away from him, and he finally makes blueberry pancakes for her. I think it's blueberry. And he presents it to her. She rejects it initially, but then she says, just leave the pancakes. And that's his in. That's his glimmer of hope. That's his shining light breaking through the clouds that have been infusing his relationship for so goddamn long. And he is so elated at being able to fucking leave pancakes of all banal things for his wife. It's a beautiful fucking moment. And fucking Dorothy wakes up with Leanne holding her legs, and she is terrified. And justifiably, from her perspective, but from everyone else watching, it's just fucking devastating. So goddamn sad. And I don't know where this goddamn show is going to go. I don't know if we're going to realize that she is fucking Beelzebub, tamped down by this weird, crazy fucking cult. Or if it's all a fucking lie and everyone's in on this weird delusion. Or if they're going to finally tell Dorothy, that yes, you accidentally killed your son. It's done. We have to work through it and move on. If everyone just finally accepts it. But there is a supernatural element underneath everything that we have to address. So outside, it showed that further cracks in the streets are widening and they're extending, and the shadow is sort of laying across the house itself. And so it seems to be this personification of Leanne's will or awakening or realization of who and what she's capable of. But ultimately, I think it's the darkness that Dorothy is bringing and Leanne is feeding into. I think we're being misled a little bit. And I'm just sort of going off on a rant here because it's just sort of coming in my head here. But as much as I was saying last episode that Leanne seems to be some sort of otherworldly power or creature or capable of something, sort of supernatural. What if it's not Leanne? Yes, it seems like it is. What if it's the trauma that Dorothy is dealing with and refusing? I'm sorry. What if it's the trauma that Dorothy has suffered from and is not dealing with? And that is the personification feeding into Leanne. Maybe Leanne is a sounding board and she's resonating the trauma that is just coming to her. And initially it would start with that cult. Now it's echoing with the Turners. We can't pretend like the Turners are a healthy fucking relationship and family because they're clearly not. And where Leanne came from is clearly not healthy and normal. So if she is simply a sounding board to trauma, I mean, that would seemingly answer every single problem that is happening around her. Whether it's the homeless people needing some sort of direction and connection, whether it's the cult needing some reason to exist, so they have to create some sort of bad guy, whether it's the Turners needing some reason to continue being connected together in the face of pure horror of losing a child. Leanne is at the center of everything, just taking in the dissonance and resonating it out. I mean, she's clearly a victim. What if that's all she is? What if that's all this entire show is? Servant is a victim of the cruel nature and discord of the world itself. I could see it. It's dark as shit, but it fits. I love that this show keeps me guessing. And I love that it forces me to look at situations in a dramatically different way than I naturally would. We're so accustomed to watching series and films and it's presented in X way, and so we interpret it in X way. And when it shifts to a Y and sort of gives us a twist, then we're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, that's a Y. It's not an X. You told me it was an X. Now, with Servant, we're given the whole fucking alphabet and we're just trying to fucking work our way through it. And it's brilliant and it's beautiful and it's frustrating and it's aggravating and it's exciting. And I fucking desperately love this goddamn show. I'm so pissed that it's going to be over soon. So let me know what you think about this show. I think it's, I would love to have a dialogue about this. I think it's completely fascinating. Let me know in the comments. Of course, my review of this is 5 evil eyes out of 5 fucking evil eyes. How could it be anything but? This is a master class in suspense filming. It is beautiful. The sound design of this episode, I almost forgot to even mention this, is top notch. I mean, in general, the sound design is amazing. In this particular episode, it stood out more than the costume design did last episode, for example. The acting is always top par. I mean, this is one of those shows that it's going to be off the air and people are going to be talking about it for years. Going back to it saying, no one watched this. Now we're finally discovering it like any cult classic. And it's goddamned amazing. I feel like I'm shouting in the darkness because I don't know anyone else who is talking about this show. But everyone should be talking about this show. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of this particular episode or maybe the series in general. I really appreciate your time and attention. And of course, as always, remember that evil spelled backwards is live. So get your asses out there. And like Leanne, be evil. Maybe not like Leanne, actually. Definitely not like Leanne.